I think both semi-finals in Wexford now. I think Wexford are in the unique position where the championship is completely wide open. And I know we're down to the semi-finals now, but I'm sure going into the quarter-finals, all 8 teams would have given themselves a chance to win it, which is fairly unique across the country, where our championship is throwing up different winners every year. So we're down to the last 4 now, and in the same token, all them 4 will give themselves a serious chance of winning. The first game, St Martin's and Castletown. It'll be an intriguing tie. I think, going into semi-finals, Castletown scored fairly heavily without one of their best forwards in young Beelan. He was missing for the game. So they will really fancy themselves to run up, put up a big score again. Martins, on the other hand, scored 13 points in the semi-final, the lowest of the four winners by a margin. The one thing the Martins will be happy about is they conceded 8, and that's something that Castletown and all the teams will need to be aware of. Was how miserly they were in defence. Where Castletown scored 3-14, they conceded 2-11. That's something I'm sure that they will be aware of going into this game. And they'll be trying to get that back down. I think semi-finals things will tighten up a little bit. Wexford Park is rarely you go down at this time of the year and there's not a strong wind blowing into the town. If the rain comes or the weather is disagreeable, scoring chances may be fewer than they were, say, 2 weeks ago when the weather was good, the ground was dry. There was a good bounce in it, and the sun on their backs. There's always more opportunity to score. So it is intriguing where the Martins will pull a lot of people behind the ball. I think if Castletown don't attack quickly, you'll see a lot of Martins guys back there. On the same token, Castletown are well capable of bringing people back themselves if you attack slowly against them. So it's a fascinating contest with 2 teams with contrasting at times the way that they play. Castletown have a good spread of players. They don't depend on anyone. Even though Ben Brosnan this year has been, I think, shooting the lights out for him during the year from a scoring point of view. I think he scored 1-5 from play in the quarter final, 1-7 in total. That's a huge return. Maybe that's down to Paul Galvin being around. Maybe Ben has decided that he'll give the county scene another shot and has given him a little boost. But they're not dependent on one guy either. Young Beelan, the 2 Holmeses, Jody Shawkins, he's still there. They have a nice spread of players. They don't have any obvious weak spots, and they can also bring on 3 or 4 guys who are very similar to the guys who are on the team starting. So they will feel that they have a squad adept to win the championship. Not dissimilar to the Martins in that respect, where they would feel they could bring in 3 or 4 people as well. The Martins, they're still Kieran Ling is still a huge player for them up front. Their most important player is Dahi Waters. I believe he went off injured hurling last week. I'm not sure whether he's back or not, but if Dahi doesn't play, I would rate Castletown warm favourites for this match. If Dahi plays, it's going to be a bush tire affair, I think. He's still he's a real warrior for them. Has been for Martins and Wexford for a long period of time, and I rate him. He's still the best midfielder in Wexford. Castletown have 2 very good young players in the middle of the field, with young Coleman in it, and Martins will need to have Dahi there to counteract that. How do I see it going? I'm kind of sitting on the fence a small bit. I see Castletown sneaking it from a point of view is they're very focused on it. They were knocked out of hurling last week. They're very focused in this semi-final. They've been focused all year. Their management is I believe the same management that was there when they won their last title. I think in 2010. So they seem to be working really hard for him. The players have bought into what he's doing. So I'm giving him a very, very tight call to Castletown at the weekend. The second game with Gusran and Glenbarntown equally is tough to call. Anyone trying to predict a winner in Wexford football over the last period of time will be coming up short on many occasions, I think. Gusran, certainly looked the most impressive in the 4 quarterfinals. I'm not sure it tells the whole story. They scored 218, which is a huge score. The Shells scored 119 against them. And that's been Gusran, I think, all season. I know we played them in the first round, and they scored 5 goals against us. We were, our defending were very, very poor on the night, but they only won the game by 3 or 4 points, which means that they were conceding heavily at the back. And that's continued throughout their season. That they have been of the attitude, you score, we'll score more than you, and it's served them well so far. In all reports and papers will say that a lot of people are placing them as favourites to win this game, or maybe even win the championship. I'm not sure I see it that way. I think they won't put up 218 against Glenbarntown. Again, the weather might have an effect on it coming into the weekend. If the weather is poor, the wind is blowing strong in Wexford Park, which it often is. We have to say how impressive they were in that quarter final. Mark Roster, Pádraig Conway, Adrian Flynn, Sean Ryan, Sam Wall. There was a spread of scores right across the team. So that augurs very well for them. You would have to question Shelmlire's defending. I think Shelmlire's went out, felt they would win the game, were confident all the way through, and when things went against them, they couldn't turn it around, and they kind of chased the game, which left them more exposed at the back. I see Glen being a bit more solid than that. Now Glen were short, probably their most influential defender last week in Lacey, John Lacey at centre back. They also lost Jack Fenlon early in the game to an injury, I believe. So a lot will depend on them two fellas. If them two play, I see the score being brought right down. The Gusran are if they're on a going day, they certainly have a chance. They certainly can get the scores. The thing is, can they balance that with a bit more of a defensive effort and hold Glenbarntown to a smaller score? Because I think if Glen can shoot like the Shells shot on last 2 weeks ago, Glenbarntown are capable of winning this game, because I don't see them being as porous at the back. Mick O'Regan and young Shane Wilde was to the fore for them. Mick's a handful for anyone. He's a big man. If he's on form and if he's fit, I know he's gone through a lot of injuries over the last few years. If Mick is back and playing well, he certainly will cause problems inside for the Gusran defence. And that's where I feel that Gusran can be got at. I think they're where they're running up big scores, they're conceding them at the other end, and it may work for them. They may go ahead and win the county final doing that, but it doesn't always work out. Each game takes on a life of its own. Suddenly if they're held down to 14, 15 points, somewhere around that mark, can they hold out Glen at the other side then? And that'll be fascinating to see. Can they do that? Look, both teams are going to this game thinking, we can win this game and we can win a county championship. Very similar to the other semi-final, and that's the fascinating thing about these two, where there's no foregone conclusion going into it. There's no team dominant. The teams at the bottom of senior, there's not much difference with them at the top of senior, and it flip-flops year on year. So this game, if I had to put my neck on the block, I would narrowly go with the Glenbarntown win, but with the caveat that that depends on a lot on whether John Lacey and Jack Fenlon can start the game and are fit to play.